and the District Attorney, Nathan Hochman. Just want to level expectations. We will allow some time for questions, but because of this is a preliminary investigation still, very active. It's being filed as we speak. There's not a lot we're going to be able to say right now. Also, if you would, please quote one question at a time so that we can hear the question and answer it appropriately. So if we could have that decorum in here. DA Nathan Hochman.
My name is Nathan Hochman. I'm the District Attorney of Los Angeles County. Today I'm here to announce that our office will be filing charges against Nick Reiner, who is accused of killing his parents, actor-director Rob Reiner, and photographer-producer Michele Singer Reiner. These charges will be 2 counts of first-degree murder with a special circumstance of multiple murders. He also faces a special allegation that he personally used a dangerous and deadly weapon, that being a knife. These charges carry a maximum sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty. No decision at this point has been made with respect to the death penalty. We have requested, and currently Nick Reiner is being held without bail. Now, in announcing these charges, I also want to announce that they're just that. They are charges. Charges are not evidence. Evidence is something that we will be presenting in a court of law to meet the standard of proof we meet in every criminal case, which is beyond a reasonable doubt, to 12 jurors who will unanimously have to find that we've met that standard to prove the charges we bring to court. Right now, with respect to the process, once the charges get filed this afternoon, Nick Reiner will be then brought to court. He is going through medical clearance, something that everybody who gets arrested and gets held in a Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department jail goes through. Once he is medically cleared, he will be brought to court to be arraigned on these charges. At that point, he will enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. Now, prosecuting these cases involving family members are some of the most challenging and most heart-wrenching cases that this office faces because of the intimate and often brutal nature of the crimes involved. Rob Reiner was a brilliant actor and director, an iconic force in our entertainment industry for decades. His wife, Michele Singer Reiner, was an equally iconic photographer and producer. Their loss is beyond tragic, and we will commit ourselves to bringing their murderer to justice. I want to thank LAPD Chief McDonnell, who is here today, along with Deputy Chief Alan Hamilton from the LAPD and LAPD Captain Scott Williams and the entire Robbery Homicide Division, who literally has been working around the clock to gather the evidence that have led to the charges we're going to be filing today. Also from my office, I have Assistant District Attorney Maria Ramirez. I have Director of Specialized Prosecutions John McKinney. I have our Head Deputy of Major Crimes, Craig Hum. And I have the 2 prosecutors who will be leading the prosecution in this case, Assistant Head Deputy of Major Crimes, Habib Balian, and Deputy District Attorney for Major Crimes, Jonathan Chung. They will bring their decades of experience to holding this murderer accountable for his actions. At this point, again, you will hear in the media rumors. You will hear speculation. You will hear hearsay. What I'm asking everyone to do is to rely on trusted sources. If it doesn't come from the District Attorney's Office, from LAPD, from the coroner's office, or from the courtroom itself, then there's a good chance you are hearing misinformation. Because at the appropriate time, the actual evidence involved in this case will be presented in a court of law. So I ask for your patience until that is done. But again, please do not rely on rank speculation, rumor, or hearsay to believe that you understand anything about what went on in this case. I'd now like to turn it over to Chief McDonnell.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, and thank you all for being here today. And it's with deep sadness that I address the tragic loss of Robert and Michele Reiner. On December 14, 2025, LAPD officers from our West Los Angeles division responded to a death investigation at the 200 block of South Chadbourne Avenue, which is in the Brentwood section of Los Angeles. Upon entering the residence, they discovered the bodies of Mr. and Mrs. Reiner. Detectives from our Robbery Homicide Division Homicide Special Section immediately initiated a comprehensive investigation. The evidence gathered led to the arrest of their son, Nick Reiner, who was taken into custody later that night without incident in the Exposition Park section of our city. Today, the Los Angeles County District's Attorney's Office has formally filed charges against Mr. Reiner for the murder of his parents. This case is heartbreaking and deeply personal, not only for the Reiner family and their loved ones, but for our entire city. We extend our deepest condolences to all of those who were affected by this tragedy. I want to take a moment to recognize and thank our criminal justice partners, the District Attorney's Office led by D.A. Hochman, and everyone who worked tirelessly on this investigation. Their swift action, professionalism, and commitment to justice have been instrumental in bringing clarity and accountability to this case. The LAPD remains steadfast in our mission to protect life and uphold justice. We will continue to support the Reiner family and ensure that every step forward is taken with care, dignity, and resolve. Thank you.
We'll now take some questions. Yes, right here in the front.
Mr. Attorney, could you talk about why you feel this case rises to special circumstances?
So special circumstances is a situation where one of the enumerated factors that lead to elevating in some ways a first-degree murder case to a special circumstance first-degree murder case occurs. One of those special circumstances is called multiple murders. Here we have two, and it qualifies under the definition of multiple murders to allege the special circumstance in this particular case.
Chief,
I saw
how
over
was
here.
Nick Reiner found, and was there any evidence on him indicating a crime, and did he say anything?
Yeah, he was found with good, solid police work, investigative tools used by Robbery Homicide and Gang and Narcotic Division detectives with the U.S. Marshal Service Task Force involved as well. So we're thankful for the work that was done. I won't go into talking about what was found or anything that could potentially taint the investigation.
Chief, one quick follow-up question,
Yeah.
sir. Given Nick's history of drug use, was there any indication that he was under the influence at the time of this crime?
No, thank you again. That's another question I can't touch.
And following up on that, is there any evidence of mental illness in his background?
Yeah, you can touch. Okay.
I'm sorry, please repeat the question.
Is there any evidence of mental illness in his background beyond the addiction?
The evidence, any evidence, if there is any, of mental illness for his background will be coming out in the hearings that will occur. We anticipate, again, after the arraignment, the process will go through the normal process a case like this goes through. At the appropriate time, if there is evidence of mental illness, it will be presented in court and in whatever detail the defense seeks to do that. Yes, right here.
Are you anticipating any kind of significant delay in bringing this case to trial on the basis perhaps that they have to undergo significant psychological evaluation, which would also give your people what they need in order to background for what might describe why his actions happened the way they did?
We don't anticipate any significant delay more than is involved in a first-degree murder case with special circumstances. These are some of the most serious charges that a DA's office can bring against anyone. And we anticipate that the discovery that we will produce to the defense will be robust. It will be very involved. They'll want adequate time to review it. They'll want to go through every single factor that they can ascertain in the defense of Mr. Nick Reiner. So again, this will proceed along the tracks that many of the first-degree murder cases proceed. Do I anticipate it being particularly fast? No. I anticipate it being very thorough. Yes, right here.
Cause of death and time of death. Can you share any information about that?
We are not at this time. Yes. Yes, right here.
Will the members of of the Reiner family help with your investigation so far, and did they provide any information or assistance which led to Nick being arrested?
Let me defer to the chief on this.
Good.
Hi, I'm Deputy Chief Alan Hamilton, Chief of Detectives. We don't have any specific information we're going to release at this time regarding the family's information they provided. As we move forward, that information will be discussed in the appropriate venue, which will be the court.
You are watching live coverage here of the charges just announced moments ago. 2 counts of first-degree murder against Rob Reiner's son, Nick Reiner, accused of stabbing to death both of his parents, Rob Reiner and Michele Singer Reiner, in their home. Of course, they were discovered over the weekend. Nick Reiner, their son, is 32 years old. ABC News has reported here that it's believed that one of the daughter actually found the parents in the home, and at the time, Nick Reiner was no longer in that home. You heard the DA asked a number of questions there. Would this take longer given special circumstances in this case? He said he did not expect it to take any longer than a typical case that includes charges as serious as these, 2 counts of first-degree murder. He said he's accused of killing his parents with a knife. He said the maximum sentence is life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty. He did not indicate which of those 2 options the DA plans to go after in this case. Again, Nick Reiner, the son of Rob and Michele Reiner, now 2 counts of first-degree murder in the stabbing deaths of his parents. That's one breaking story we're following. There are also new developments at this hour in the urgent manhunt in a separate case. I want to show you these images real quick before we go. The gunman wanted in the deadly mass shooting at Brown University. These images just in this afternoon. As we know, 2 students were killed, 9 injured. The FBI releasing this new surveillance of this person of interest, dressed in black, wearing a mask, walking through a neighborhood. They have pieced together different pieces of video. Investigators going frame by frame through the growing collection of videos, studying his height, his weight, his walk. The FBI now offering a reward up to $50,000 for any information leading to the arrest or the conviction of the suspect. That's in the Brown University mass shooting case. We're following that as well. But again, the big story just moments ago, 2 counts of first-degree murder now. Nick Reiner, formerly charged in the stabbing deaths of his parents, Rob Reiner and Michele Reiner. That was the DA from Los Angeles speaking just moments ago. Our coverage will continue on ABC News Live, abcnews.com. For many of you here in the East, we go back to your local news, and I'll see you a short time from now for World News Tonight. Take care.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
Thanks so much for streaming with us. I'm Elizabeth Schulze. We have been listening to breaking news. The LA District Attorney announcing 2 charges of first-degree murder against Nick Reiner, who's accused in the death of his parents, Rob and Michele Reiner, the famed Hollywood icon. Let's go right away now to ABC News' Trevor Ault, who is there in LA outside court. Trevor, these 2 charges of murder just announced.
Yes, and we knew these were going to be pretty substantial charges as Nick Reiner was being held without bail, Elizabeth. But to get that clarity now, they are officially accusing the 32-year-old of murdering both of his parents, Rob Reiner, Michele Singer Reiner, carried out. And also, while not revealing too much information about how they believe these murders were carried out, they did confirm some information that we had been hearing from sources about this investigation. Among them, the fact that we had heard that this was carried out by Rob Reiner, Michele Reiner, being stabbed to death. What we heard from the district attorney is that a special circumstance, along with those first-degree murder charges, is that he used a dangerous and deadly weapon, which was a knife. He specified that. Of course, they played the rest of the press conference very close. They don't want to reveal too much information. So I do want to take our viewers through the timeline, what we have heard from sourcing so far. First of all, is we know that Nick Reiner had been very open about the fact that he had been struggling with substance abuse issues going back to the time that he was a teenager. He'd been very open about that. He actually worked with Rob Reiner, his father, making a film inspired by his difficulties. What I had heard from being on the scene at the Brentwood home where these murders were carried out, I spoke with a former security guard who had worked with the family, who said that Nick had been staying on the property there, that he was obviously very troubled, although from that security guard's perspective, Nick had never displayed any kind of tendency that would indicate he was potentially murderous. What we've heard about the timeline is that Saturday, sources say, the family was at Conan O'Brien's holiday party, and there was some kind of argument that played out between Rob and Nick Reiner, and people described Nick's behavior at that party as saying that he was acting strangely. Then, of course, the bodies were found on Sunday, the daughter discovering both Rob and Michele with those fatal stab wounds. Police then on the scene, but then it appeared that Nick, according to law enforcement sources, had left. It wasn't until Sunday night that they were able to find him and apprehend him without incident. That was near USC. He was then booked the following morning, Monday, and now here he is officially charged. We did also see that he has retained an attorney, a high-profile defense attorney named Alan Jackson. Alan Jackson recently represented Karen Reed, another case that had a lot of attention on it. She was acquitted on a murder charge. Alan Jackson said at this point, there's not been an arraignment for Nick Reiner because he's still going a medical review, basically, which is a standard procedure for a person who has been arrested and is going through the procedures facing charges. So that still needs to play out. Does not necessarily indicate that there might be physical or mental medical issues that Nick Reiner needs evaluated. But hanging over all of this, Elizabeth, is the possibility of mental illness maybe being involved. We don't know that for sure. What we do know is in that very press conference that we just heard, the district attorney was asked about if Nick Reiner had displayed any issues with mental illness, if they were aware about any kind of mental diagnosis, and he didn't say no. What he specified is if there is a mental health diagnosis, that would come out over the course of the trial and would be presented by the defense. It's possible that mental illness is not a factor in this case, but it is also possible that it is. Of course, hanging over all of it still, the history of drug abuse. We don't know yet if that is involved in this case. What we do know is law enforcement and the district attorney believe 32-year-old Nick Reiner fatally stabbed both his mother and his father in their home over the weekend. A very tragic story. One of the most iconic filmmakers in the history of cinema passing away. His wife, also incredibly beloved, a photographer in her own right. We're hearing people all over the world, and certainly people who worked with them and knew them well, in mourning. Elizabeth?
And as the district attorney said, these cases involving family members are some of the most challenging and most heart-wrenching. Trevor out there outside court in LA for us. Trevor, thanks so much. I'm Elizabeth Schulze. We will have a lot more news after this break.
Whenever, wherever news breaks, it's so important to always remember that lives are changed.
Here in London, in Buffalo, Uvalde, Texas, Edinburgh, Scotland, from Poland once again tonight. Thank you so much for streaming with us. Ukrainian refugees here in Warsaw. Do you think you'll ever be able to go back home? We're heading to a small community outside of Mexico City. Splintered houses and splintered lives. The magnitude of the devastation. You're streaming ABC News Live. Reporting from Rolling Fork, Mississippi, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Raleigh, North Carolina, the U.S. Capitol, Mayfield, Kentucky,
Minneapolis,
Mexico, Tongass National Forest, Alaska.
Getting you behind the stories as they happen, giving you a front row seat to our world as it plays out in real time, live.
ABC News Live Prime. We'll take you there.
Stream ABC News Live weeknights, America's most honored streaming news program, only on ABC News Live. Streaming free right now wherever you stream your news.
Morning, Lois. When are you going to slow down? Find a man.
Welcome to Townsville. It's my local girlfriend.
I won all of the Hot Girl Awards.
I've been on the cover of Forbes.
It's Ford, and I've been on the hood of it too. Disney's, Hulu's, Family Guys, Hallmark Channels, Lifetime's Familiar, Holidays. Movie.
Okay, we want to know, who are the people in your state that make such a big difference?
Come on now. We all know someone who does so much.
And we want to celebrate them with you. So scan this QR code or go to goodmorningamerica.com. Tell us about them.
We're coming to all 50 states in 50 weeks to celebrate the best of what makes America beautiful.
David Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, the most watched newscast in America, and honored with the Emmy Award, winner for Outstanding Live News Program.
I'm Elizabeth Schulze in Washington. We begin with the breaking news on the latest on the tragic death of a Hollywood icon. The LA District Attorney just announcing murder charges against Rob Reiner's son, Nick, in the death of his parents. Prosecutors say he will be charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstance of multiple murders. He also faces a charge of a special allegation of personally using a dangerous and deadly weapon. Listen to how the district attorney outlined the next steps in this case.
Charges are not evidence. Evidence is something that we will be presenting in a court of law to meet the standard of proof we meet in every criminal case, which is beyond a reasonable doubt, to 12 jurors who will unanimously have to find that we've met that standard to prove the charges we bring to court.
The LAPD has also released new photos showing Nick's arrest on Sunday night. He's currently being held without bail. His attorney says that Nick is not medically cleared to appear in court, though he could go before a judge as early as tomorrow. ABC's Melissa Adon is outside the court in LA. Also joining us, criminal defense attorney Jeremy Saland, to discuss all of this in this breaking news at this hour. So, Melissa, talk about what we just heard from the DA there about these charges and what the police are saying about their investigation.
For sure, Elizabeth, what stuck out to me, really, the new piece of information that we now have confirmed is the weapon, that deadly weapon allegation that was shared by the DA. That weapon that Nick Reiner, the DA says, used is a knife. That is how we understand that they found the bodies of both Michele and Rob Reiner stabbed to death in their Brentwood home on Sunday. The DA confirming that they believe the suspect, Nick Reiner, their son, used a knife to kill them. So that stuck out to me, of course, that we now have these formal charges of 2 counts of first-degree murder for each Rob and Michele. I also want to highlight, of course, how Nathan Hochman was sharing what an impact this was, saying how the community here has lost an icon when referring to Rob and both Michele, equal icons here to the entertainment industry, and all of the big accomplishments that they have created here in this community, here in Hollywood, and of course beyond, impacting and touching so many lives. So that is a key part there. As we're looking into how the LAPD chief was talking about the investigation, they were deferring to the DA's office, and the DA making very clear a lot of new evidence that we are expecting to hear details or nuggets about that timeline. We will be hearing that in court come the hearing. Tomorrow, likely will be that arraignment. In that arraignment, that is where we're expected, of course, to get a much more detailed response from the LAPD, and we'll be able to see those charges once they are formally filed by the district attorney's office and see that right up for ourselves, which again, we're going to be looking for more of those details. But I also want to note, as far as right now, Nick Reiner, he is in jail. He's being held without bail. This is where he is currently waiting his medical assessment. As we learned from authorities in this press conference, they say that medical procedure is just standard. However, that is going to be hinging on whether or not we will be seeing him appear in court tomorrow. Elizabeth.
Melissa, thanks. Jeremy, what do you make of these charges against Nick Reiner, which could potentially include life or prison or even the death penalty?
It doesn't surprise me because you have a premeditated murder as alleged, you have multiple victims as alleged, and then you have this other factor of this dangerous or deadly instrument. So all this points into the direction of this is a type of case that would be a murder one case and potentially, as you heard, a death penalty case. Keep in mind, however, I believe California has a moratorium. You could still be sentenced to death, but I believe there's a moratorium for the actual application of that death penalty if ultimately he's found guilty. I wanted to say, though, that the prosecutor, D.A. Hochman, did a real tremendous job. He had an opportunity to, as an elected official, to maybe showboat a little bit. And I don't want to sort of be cavalier in my terms, but it's a very sensational case. It's very sad and horrific and tragic, but he was very by the book, by the law, very straightforward. Don't speculate. Don't get your evidence or information from anywhere but us and the court, and let us do our job. Even when the issue of insanity seemed to percolate, which there very well be a mental disease and defect, that was, we will let the evidence play out. This is not about being quick. It's about being thorough. And I think victims of crimes, witnesses to crimes, and the accused all deserve that thorough nature. So I think this is going to be a long process, and I am a little surprised that Nick has not been produced as of yet because, yes, you have to go and make sure you're medically fit. But we understand there's an investigation that leads to these charges, but it shouldn't take too long to get him before a judge. So there may be something going on. But to DA Hochman's point, we shouldn't be speculating, and that evidence is going to come out over the course of the next few days and more.
Yeah, Jeremy, that struck me as well. The DA saying that these are only charges at this time. Evidence will be presented in the court of law. So surely a lot more to come on this. Jeremy Saland, Melissa Adon, thank you both so much. Now to a story that's making waves here in Washington. The White House is defending President Trump's chief of staff, Susie Wiles, after she gave a candid series of interviews to Vanity Fair, offering unfiltered descriptions of President Trump and members of his cabinet. The White House press secretary today said that quotes were taken out of context. She called the framing of the story disingenuous. Some of the headlines from the article included Wiles saying in part that President Trump has an alcoholic's personality. She also said that Vice President J.D. Vance has been a conspiracy theorist for a decade. Vance today appeared to brush that off.
I haven't looked at the article. I, of course, have heard about it. But conspiracy theorist, sometimes I am a conspiracy theorist, but I only believe in the conspiracy theories that are true. Yeah. And by the way, Susie and I have joked in private and in public about that for a long time.
Wiles also addressed Attorney General Pam Bondi's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case, saying in the article Bondi, quote, whiffed at her initial handling of the files. ABC News senior Washington reporter Will Staken